Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Friday, March 4th, and this is virtual lunch number 513. Our guest today is Matthew Geaghan, the head of legal sales at Nuix, and this is part of our continuing series on the changing legal landscape with Nuix. Hey, Matthew, how you doing?
I'm very well, Ari. How are you?
I'm well. We've known each other a long time, and I am very excited for this conversation. Tell us about your background, your role at Nuix, and how has that role evolved over the past 12 years?
I fell into Ediscovery, as I'm sure a lot of us did who were in it, in 2007. Came out of university and I went to a jobs fair, and the person at the jobs fair started talking to me about Ediscovery. And I asked, did the job pay a salary? And she said it did. And I was all in at that point. Interviewed with Nigel Murray, and he gave me my first job at Trilantic in London in 2007. I often say that we used to use law as our processing engine, but when I started, we used Hard Copy Pro Plus by Extractiva. And not only did it have a Microsoft Access backend, it also had a Microsoft Access frontend, which was our interface for processing data and loading it up into review. Shortly after, we did get law, and we were using iConnect and Relativity. And then a couple of charming Irishmen came over and did a demo of Nuix. They talked up how fast it was and how stable it was. I didn't hear about it then for another 6 months when I got tapped to speak with them, because they were looking for somebody to be on the ground in England. It was 2010, and Nuix had signed up PwC as our first advisory customer. One morning, PwC's license had expired. So, of course, they were furious. They were trying to get on with their day, and they couldn't because the license was expired. At that time of the day, all the Americans were still asleep and all the Australians had gone down the pub. So there was nobody that could cut the license for poor little PwC. The Nuix guys took an ear bashing from PwC and said, okay, we're going to find somebody in London to be a junior ranger on the ground that can take care of things like licensing. I had a few conversations with them, went into work a week later and told Nigel that I was going to be handing in my notice of my last day, and started working for Nuix then as the first UK employee in July of 2010. When you talk about legal software, we're narrowing it in on the data processing and litigation support services side of it. Whenever I'm getting ready for legal week, and as soon as the registration list gets leaked to all the vendors, I start getting emails from all the other legal software suppliers that are trying to sell me stuff for time tracking and deposition management and all this stuff that I have no interest in, because one, I'm not a lawyer, and two, I'm focused on selling data processing and analytics and review software. It's amazing to me that after 12 years in it, there still really isn't a defined best practice agreed, this is how you should do things. We're still figuring things out together as we go along. In terms of career opportunity, that's exciting because there is scope for innovation and development of what you're trying to do within the firm. You can crack on and get things done quickly. When you're familiar with the technology and with the solutions and with how other customers are using the software, you can speak to that and you can do a 5 to 10 minute demo of the software without having to say, okay, wait, let's check our calendars for next week and get this person on the call. Having that experience, that broader experience, it helps with the velocity that you're able to do things. The barrier to entry is rising for salespeople. I think about when my parents would have gone out to buy their washing machine. They would have gone to the washing machine store and spoken to the sales consultant who was at the store. And he would have said, well, right this way. Mm-hmm. This is the latest one. This is the most expensive one. And this is the one that you probably want. Whereas now, if I'm buying a washing machine, I know the entire washing machine market, the latest technologies in washing machines, because I've done all my research online. I'm such an educated buyer by the time I speak to the vendor that salesperson needs to be able to add value and needs to be able to demonstrate their worth in the cycle. Your salesperson needs to have more experience than just being able to point and say, look, this is the one you want to buy. Especially in Ediscovery right now, I don't think there's any particularly law firms who don't have their e-discovery problem figured out, rightly or wrongly, optimally or suboptimally. Everyone's got a product or a provider at this point. 10 years ago, it was great. You'd walk in, and if you just had an e-discovery solution, that was better than what they had at that point. You need to be ready for when you get approached, from when your buyer is shopping and is equipped with a sense of what their priorities are, so that you can help them with that last mile of their exploration. I'm thinking about our most recent big wins, and yeah, they have been switches. And Nuix has a lot of different solutions that we sell. But you don't have a lot of time when you have an interaction with a prospect. You can't talk them through all 10 things that Nuix does. You maybe get a chance to talk about 2 of them, and you've got to hope that you hit on the one that they're interested in. E-discovery is more and more commoditized with each year, but the electronic data landscape and the business challenges and the increased scrutiny of regulators now is just given rise to a whole host of different projects and different requirements that the corps have to deal with. So if you're able to support them in those areas and help them with other challenges, maybe they're not interested in moving house just for the sake of having a different shaped pool, but maybe they want to move house if there's some additional neighborhood amenities and there's a yoga center and a gym and an outdoor movie theater that if they move house, they'll have access to all of those. What's coming to my mind is that consistency is the mark of any champion, because one thing that won't be consistent is the paychecks that you get as a salesperson. You go through some hungry months if the deals aren't closing on time or if the invoices aren't going out as you would hope that they do. And it's up to you to maintain consistency in your morning routine. The last month I was in Houston with my brother, and he works in oil and gas. It's interesting comparing his and I's careers, because he's been in the massive multinational for the last 15 years, and I've been in the back of an envelope Nuix, certainly in the early years. He runs his life with military precision when it comes to his morning routine, and he got me into it over the last month, and we were up at 5:30 in the gym, teeth brushed, at the desk, fruit breakfast, all that good stuff. Yeah, just put me in a good state of mind to stay consistent with my outreaches, my follow-ups, my messaging, and staying with the other members of the team, nurturing the relationships, not just externally, but internally. We had a great team day this week in Philadelphia, where we got 8 of us together in a room. I remember one of our bosses said, "Hey, what's the agenda for your day?" And we pushed back and said, look, the point isn't to have an agenda. We don't need an agenda. We just need to all be in a room working together. And we could see each other out of the corner of our eyes, all beavering away. And I felt part of something. I was seeing my guys doing their thing. And I'd pop up and say, "Hey lads, what about this thing that I'm working on? Anyone got any input?" It would just spin up a conversation. Regular one-on-ones and regular team calls, standard. What I really liked was blending the teams. So having guests from other parts of the company feature on our team calls. I found that to be really helpful, because it would keep things fresh and it would keep us on our A game when we knew we were hosting. When we were having somebody from the corporate sales team or from product or from training or from our customer experience or customer support, when we knew they were coming, we'd get the best china out and we'd iron our shirt that day. And that would keep us on our game. And it would bring their knowledge to us and their perspective. So everybody would walk away stronger, and you'd know a new person's name to type into Teams. Once you've been on a call together and you've chatted, it's so much easier to tap the name into Teams and to do a chat. Whereas if you have never had an interaction, you're not as quick to just type their name into Teams and ask them a quick question.
Matthew Geaghan, everybody! Well done. Wonderful to see you. Fantastic to see all of my pals at Nuix. I'm so grateful to Nuix for supporting this series on the changing legal landscape, and I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Thanks so much.